This episode of the podcast is brought to you by finding out glue is made of horse hooves and then going on to start the most successful glue business in the world because you hate horses because one killed your father. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Roll the Credits, the podcast, the only podcast that puts a tracking device in their listeners. I'm Frank.
I'm Zach.
And today we are doing I Saw the Devil. Mm-hmm. So you've already seen this movie.
I have. And I was actually really surprised when you picked this one because I was like, wow, Frank likes Korean movies.
I've never been known to not like Korean movies.
Really?
In what world? The only thing I don't like is anime.
Well, yeah.
Okay, well then I'm glad we got that figured out. So we are doing 2010's I Saw the Devil, directed by Jin Woon Kim, written by Park Hoon Jung, but then adapted from Jin Woon Kim's, I guess, original kind of idea. And this movie stars, for the most part, you have three major stars.
Yeah.
You have Lee Brung Hun. I'm going to butcher these names. I apologize. You have Choi Min Sik, and you have Jeon Guk Hwan. I'm doing pretty good, I think.
That's not bad.
I think it's pretty good. And this movie is insane.
Yes.
This movie is about a serial killer who then becomes the victim of somebody who's maybe a little bit crazier than he is.
Yes.
After he kills this man's girlfriend or fiance, whatever she is. And then it is a cat and mouse movie of the hunter and the hunted.
Yeah. Little did he know he's I guess CIA agent, like something to the
Yeah, he's definitely like the Korean version of like a CIA agent, whatever that would be.
Definitely someone not to fuck with.
Yeah.
But he didn't know that going into this.
Right. Yeah, and I watched this movie for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and I was just blown away by it. I thought it was really, really good. It's very dark.
Yes.
It's very gory and graphic and sad, and there is almost a weird thing that happens in the movie where you almost kind of start feeling bad for the killer.
Yeah. So that was like a weird thing that happened with me too, where it's like about like halfway through when like he's just getting like the shit beat out of him. It was like Kyung Chul, his name is, I think, in the film. He just like is getting the shit beat out of him, and you almost start to feel bad. You're like, wow, can you just kill him already? Like he's had enough. And then you're like, no, let's just keep going.
Yeah, because it does an interesting thing where he's getting beaten so badly that you kind of start feeling bad, because essentially the premise is that he's the man who you have Sue, right, who's kind of like the pursuer now.
Yeah.
He is chasing Jang Kyung, who is like the serial killer. He killed his wife, yet somehow simultaneously you start feeling bad for the killer because it's like a crazy premise of now this man is going to slowly torture this man, and every time that he sees him, he beats him up, he beats the crap out of him, he hurts him in some way, in like some really vicious ways.
Yeah.
But he never actually kills him.
No, he just like
he
drops
lets
him off.
Yeah, he lets him go, and then he tracks him down again, and then he just keeps this rinse and repeat. That being said, that's the only kind of con that I have for the film, is that I do feel like it's a little repetitive.
Yeah, so like that was like a big thing because like, again, you look at this film, it's 2.5 hours long. Like towards like that middle portion, like when Sue like goes to the house of like the other two,
the cannibals,
basically, yeah. Like after that scene, you're kind of at this point where it's like, okay, it's getting a little repetitive. Like when are we gonna get to the point where it's like, because at that point you're like, oh, this movie could have ended like 3 different times already. And then they switched it up, because that was like the whole thing where it's like when I was watching it, I was like, okay, this movie's feeling a little long, like it's feeling like it's starting to drag. And then you had the whole thing of June where it's like he overhears that like the pill inside of him is like a little microphone and tracker. and it's like now the hunted has become the hunter again, where it's like he's starting to realize and he's starting to pick up on like what to do next to like fuck with him back. And that's where like the movie hooked me back in again.
Yeah.
Because this was getting dangerously close to me being like, okay, I'm kind of like bored of it now.
Yeah, it definitely teeters that line, but you're right that during that last like 45 minutes or so, it does switch it up.
Yeah.
And it does it like just in time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it hangs you on, it makes you hang on to it a little bit more because it's like now you have to find out how this is going to end.
Yeah.
Because it turns into this guy saying, all right, now I'm going to just kill everybody that you love and then I'm going to turn myself in.
Yes.
And then he wins.
Exactly. Like, and that was the point where it's like, I kind of made a joke before we got on here of like the Joker, but it's like there was like a weird point, I don't know, but for you, where it's like this felt like a Batman Joker kind of vibe, because after a certain point, like June is like, there's nothing you can do to hurt me. Like I've already won, and that was like one of my favorite lines in the film was like, who do you think really won, you or me? And it's like he won, like he's taken everything from Sue, and it's like there's nothing really that you can do to stop him at this point. Like even if you kill him, he still killed everybody that you love.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's something that I really like about like Korean films.
They're always so sad.
Always so sad, always end on like a dark note. And like I love that when you look at stuff like The Host, Parasite, this, Old Boy, like just all these films that like never end on like a happy note.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. I have a Korean friend who is, I've kind of had this conversation with him where it's like, dude, why are all of these like South Korean films so dark? Like the horror movies are so scary.
Oh yeah.
And they're always so dark and they're never just a horror movie. They always have like some type of deeper metaphor usually. Mm-hmm. And even the movies that aren't the horror in the horror genre and they're more just these dramas or these crime thrillers or whatever they are, again, they're always so heavy. And I'm like, why? And he's just like, because we're kind of like born with this guilt.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like there's such like a high expectation for us from our parents and we just have like this overwhelming sense of guilt, kind of like we're born with it. It's kind of like a Catholic is born with that like Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
And like these Koreans are born with like this guilt and it's just like weighs on them so heavily. And like just so many of them are so sad all the time. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense then as to why, you know, these movies are usually so dark and so heavy, especially when they lean into it, right? Like when they really lean into it, I mean, it goes like, you're just like, man, I don't know if like an American audience, like, I don't know how this would do in a theater.
Oh, I know, because I've seen like
in a Western theater.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot at this point where it's like these like, and I was actually really surprised because like I found out that during this time, Kim Jae-woon like was told by producers that like he had to tone down this movie because it was going to be like a restricted film then, and it's like he did that, but it's like to me that was weird because it's like Korean films are known for like this stuff where it's like very heavy, very dark, very gory stuff. So it's like to ask him to tone it down.
It's like, what didn't we see?
Yeah, exactly.
Because we
like,
saw a lot.
Yeah, and it was super weird too because like I found out that like he cut out like a lot of stuff for the Korean version, and like a lot of unnecessary scenes in like his opinion. And then the international one, which is the one that I think that we saw, that was like the one where it had like everything added into it, but somehow the original is still longer than this one.
Interesting.
I don't understand. It's super weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was very confusing because it's like they're known for this, like being super gory, kind of like how Italian horror films are, like just show everything.
Yeah.
So it's like for them to be like, hey, you can't show this stuff is odd.
Yeah. But other than that, other than like the little bit of repetitiveness,
this movie's
I fucking
great.
love this movie.
Can we talk about the puffer jacket? The jacket is great.
You love it?
I love it. Like it's super weird too because it's like on anybody else, like if I wore that jacket during this film, look like a stupid idiot. But somehow like Sue pulls it off like super well.
Yeah.
And it's literally just this jacket that like is just medium
It's
size.
a pretty generic jacket.
It's a medium sized like puffy jacket.
Black
like,
jacket.
Yeah, like nothing crazy. Nothing where it's like, oh, like you can tell it's the winter because he's like puffed out like that. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but like it's enough that he's mobile.
Yeah.
He's got a cute little hood.
Okay. Oh, wasn't expecting.
Like every time that I see this movie, I always notice the jacket for some reason.
Interesting.
I'm just like, you could have worn anything else.
He does get it does get a.
Like he looks super cool with
It
the
gets
suit.
cut.
Yeah,
He does look good in the suit.
yeah. So it's like, why not just wear the suit?
Yeah, but I guess that would be, like we've seen that too many times.
Yeah.
So I am obsessed with the character of Jang, the killer.
Yes.
He's the actor who plays him does him so well.
So-
Like so convincingly scary
Mm-hmm.
and insane. He kind of, you know what it sort of reminds me of, and it's sort of similar. It's sort of a similar type of film too. Is he reminds me of Anton Chigurh
Yeah.
from No Country for Old Men, which also happens to be a movie, a cat and mouse chasing game.
Yeah.
And he has that insanity factor, a little bit crazier, I think. And he's just so convincing as the killer. Like when you're sitting there in the school bus with him, when he goes and he picks up the kids as his like day job, and the cops start calling him, and he kind of realizes that like the jig is up, so I'm gonna just kill this girl. I mean, the looks, the way that he looks with his eyes.
Oh, I know.
And the way that this movie is directed it's directed so well and so stylized, but like not to a point where it's distracting.
Yeah, like you're still paying attention to everything, but like you do notice like some of the nuances of like the film that like from opening shot, like the overhead shot in the snow of like him dragging the girlfriend.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, beautiful shot, but again, it's not taking away from like the story to it.
Yeah.
And I've like, so it was weird because it's like I knew him originally from Old Boy as Odaisu. And those, weirdly enough, are like the two movies that I've only seen him in. But like I prefer his character in this to Odaisu, just because of like how crazy he is.
He's so nuts.
Yeah, like
And he has such a good like turning point in which there's kind of a moment where which is what we were talking about, where when the tables kind of flip again.
Yeah.
Where he almost kind of starts enjoying the torture. And that is so interesting and such an interesting thing to kind of unpack, because it's like, why? Like,
Yeah.
where is this masochism now coming from?
And I like that too, where it's like we don't know why he does the killing. We don't know why he does this, where he chops them up and like puts them into like bags. Like it's never assumed that like, he's selling them on the black market,
No,
or
he's
he's
just a
eating
serial
them.
killer.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's just doing this.
He's just he's just crazy to be crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's so good though. One of my favorite, I think, in my opinion, the most impressive camera shot that I saw in the film, and the one that I rewatched because of just how good it was when Jang gets picked up by the fake taxi driver. So, right, like there's the guy who he gets, I think it was the second time that he got beat, or maybe it was the first. No, I think it was the first actually. He gets like left with the money, and he's like walking down the road, and the two guys in the taxi pick him up, and he's sitting in the driver's seat, and you kind of begin to realize that those guys are not the taxi drivers.
Yeah.
And he ends up stabbing both of them. And the way that the camera is just all one continuous take, and it's just circling around inside of the car. It had to be a fake car. It must have been like
absolutely.
a whole thing where they were sitting in the seats, and then the top and everything was removed. And
Yeah.
they're just, because the way that you're able to see everything, it's not that the camera isn't like so close to them that you don't know what's going on. Like it's far enough away that you can see everything that's happening, and the way that it's just circling around them, and the choreography
Oh yeah, absolutely.
of the action scenes and the fighting is so good. We just don't have that in American cinema.
No, and that's the thing.
Not
is,
to this
like,
level anyway.
No, like that's the thing is like, and this like This was 2010. Like, this was
Yeah.
10 years ago. And, like, they're
13 years ago.
Shut up. I don't remember what day it is at this point. But, like, you have this stuff that, like, is more than a decade old. And it's like they're doing these incredible things. And it's like there are movies out now, like, for us that, like, aren't even capturing this level of, like, cinematography.
No. And it's so impressive to watch. And you're sitting there and, you know, there's so many long takes, especially during the action sequences. It's kind of like their bread and butter. I feel like Korean films love to do these really long takes.
Yeah. I mean, even, I don't know, for you, like, my favorite shot in the movie too was, like, the tunnel scene when it's like after, like, the third time where it's like he picks him up and he drops him off, like, inside the tunnel right around when, like, June realizes, like, oh, there's the microchip inside of me.
Yeah.
And it's just him, like, slowly trying to get up. And then, like, you get the shot from, like, outside the tunnel and it's, like, super fuzzy. And you just see the outline of him, like, hobbling out. Like, basically, like, he almost looks like a zombie, like, rising out of the grave. Because, like, he's just, like, hobbling around, trying to, like, move slowly.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just really good. Like, that's just a really good shot there.
What about when he fucking cuts his Achilles heel?
Oh,
isn't that
and that's
rough?
what I'm talking about. Is like, show it to me. Like, that's really good stuff.
Yeah, I love gore. Mm-hmm. I know this movie is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, absolutely not.
And you cannot, if you like, because, like, I don't even know what to categorize this under. Like, it's kind of a horror film with the amount of like grotesque things that are happening. But it's not a scary movie.
No, I guess, like, thriller.
Yeah, I guess it's like a horror thriller, sort of. The only reason why I would categorize it as horror would be the amount of blood and whatnot that's happening. I adored the cannibalism scene. I love that sequence. Dude, it turns into like a Home Alone thing where he's like throwing the fish hooks down.
I know.
And the shotgun scene is great when the killer falls down to the ground and he runs up on him and he hits him and then the shotgun goes off and it's so intense.
I know. And I was like waiting for him to like spear one of them. Because like he had like a metal spear in his hand, but like instead he just decided to beat him over the
crap
head.
out of him with it. And yeah, I mean, when he actually is down in the dungeon, kind of, or in the basement, I guess, with the cannibal, it's so kind of like confusing, and you're like, where am I now? What is happening?
It definitely felt like a Texas Chainsaw style to it too.
Yeah.
Like that whole like meat locker room basement type thing. Like it felt like, oh, okay.
And the movie doesn't shy away from like anything, right? He has like a whole freezer full of body parts, and then he's kind of like, no, I want it fresh. Mm-hmm. So then he's got a girl in the basement that he's got locked up, and he's gonna kill her. Jesus Christ.
I know.
But this movie does kind of bring up the question of like, now, is Sue going too far? Like, at this point, he is almost just as bad as the killer.
And that was the thing too, where it's like his girl or fiance's like sister even said is like, you can't become a monster to kill a monster.
Yeah.
And that's basically like what he does. Like I do think that there is a point where it's like Sue becomes a little too obsessed with the revenge aspect of it, where it's like he's playing around too much, and that obviously is something that like comes to bite him back. And it's like, had you ended this like the first night, maybe you wouldn't have felt as good, but you would have gotten your justice.
Yeah, but I mean, the movie does come like full circle with that, where, you know, there's kind of the proof of that he doesn't feel good. Like the ending shot kind of proves it all, right? I mean, you have the line from Jang where he's like, you know, she's never gonna come back. Like you're never going to, no matter what you do to me, she's gone.
Yeah, and
it is true, and you know that kind of does come full circle when, he ends up finally coming to the conclusion of this, where he's like, I need to end this now. And he has the guillotine in the basement of the killer. And there's an interesting thing that's happening there, because the way that they shot it was kind of like mimicking when Sue's girlfriend or fiance was being killed. Mm-hmm. And it's a very similar shot of the way that Jang is looking at the fiance, and then the way that Sue is looking at Jang. Mm-hmm. And there's like this there's like this mimicking thing of like he has now become
Yeah, the monster.
the monster, and I mean, who the fuck puts somebody up into a guillotine and then forces their family to be the reason as to why he ends up getting decapitated? And by the way, that scene is crazy.
Yeah.
Simply for the editing, because there is we're kind of used to either like a CG or if it's done practically, when that guillotine would come down, it would have been like a dummy.
Yeah.
But the way that they
Edited
blended it together, because he's moving.
Yeah.
He's there, he's moving. And when the guillotine comes down and decapitates him, obviously that's a dummy at some point.
Yes.
And I kind of want to go back and watch it frame by frame and see where the cut is, because when you're watching it just normally, you can't tell, and it's so convincing.
Yeah,
it's
like
scary.
And that's the thing too, is like you look at like all the gore and everything, and it is all practical effects. I think like the only time that like it really wasn't.
Yeah, it was when the guy was getting his face beaten.
When the chief was getting his face beaten in, and you were like, okay, that's obviously CGI, but like, yeah, like that's a really good shot, because you're just waiting on it, and then like when the head rolls, and it's like, okay, obviously that's like the practical effect dummy, but it's like, yeah, like it was really well edited to the point where it's like you don't know.
It's really good.
And that was like the big thing too, where it's like, that's kind of like that's the only thing that you can kind of like debate on, did Sue win? Is because at that point, having June's family come and like watch this was like the only thing that rattled him. Like everything else throughout the movie, he was like calm, collected. He was like, you know what, you beat me up, but I'm gonna go back out and like try to do it again.
Yeah.
And it's like right beforehand where it's saying like, like I like cut the bullshit, like I've already won, like you lost, like there's nothing you can do to me that will make anybody come back or fix anything that you've done that I've done. And then the family comes in, and then that's when like the actual terror starts setting in for June. And it's like, I still think he won, but you can debate that like that is the point where like Sue won.
I think that it really just comes down to there simply being no winner.
Yeah.
Like nobody wins in this situation. Everybody loses. And I think that's kind of what that final shot is. I think that final shot of Sue walking down the street and crying, and because he left the tracker device there that has a microphone in it, so he heard everything happen. He realizes that Jang has now been killed, and then he just is it's very similar shot to the Black Coat's daughter walking down the street by himself, and then he just starts crying, and then you just cut to black.
And
I think that is like, yeah, I mean, there's just no winning. There is no winner in this situation, and everybody lost. And no matter everything that he did, I don't think he feels better about the situation, right? He doesn't feel good that he's finally gone at this point, because he's lost everything.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend his fiance is never coming back. And yes, he was able to, make the family of Jang kind of sort of feel similarly to the way that he has been feeling, but
they're also innocent.
They're so innocent that like it's like it's just a lose for everybody.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I like the international version better, because like if you go and watch like the original Korean cut for this film, like Sue, you can't hear him crying. Like you see him crying, but it's just the music, and it's like this version of it, like the music's playing, but you also get him like just sobbing.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's way more powerful too, because it's like you feel like how this really didn't help him. Like this was like the moment where it's like he should have felt better. He got his revenge. Like everything's done, but it's like too much has happened between that time that like like this is the actual realization that like nothing worked.
Yeah.
Like everything was just led up to like had he been there for her birthday, none of this would have happened.
Right. It's very sad.
It is sad. And I like that.
I do too. I don't know why. Again, we've kind of mentioned this when we spoke about films that make us cry. Of like, I don't know why I gravitate towards such heavy films, but I don't know. They stick with you, and I just think that when the credits started to roll, on this. I just had to like sit there for
Yeah, just like let it sink in
yeah,
for a
just like
second.
let it all kind of like wash over me. It's an exciting movie. It's got the action. It's got really well choreographed action.
Yeah.
It's got the good. If you're into gore, it's got the gore. It's got the heart because it's just pulling on all of your heartstrings. It's got the drama. Like it's got everything that you could want in a movie. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Is it a little long? Yes.
A little bit.
Is it a little repetitive? Yes. But when everything is said and done, did it really affect my enjoyment of the film? No.
No. I still really like this film. I still give it like a probably like 8.5.
Yeah, I'm feeling like
guillotines.
8. Yeah, I feel like it's a solid 8. It's not a perfect movie. I really want to see
The Chaser.
the previous film that this guy made called The Tale of Two Sisters, I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
haven't
because I was
seen
going
it.
through like some of his filmography, and like there's another one too of like Murderer of the Tape, something like that like I want to check out.
Yeah. I think the one that I said, The Tale of Two Sisters, seems like a more traditional horror. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to. I saw that it was streaming on multiple services, so I'm going to probably sit down and watch that at some point soon. But yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed, and I think that this movie is, again, it's got everything that you could really want from a movie.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want dark,
if you
if you want happy, then this movie doesn't have that.
yeah, if you're into like horrible things happening,
Yeah.
this is your movie.
Right.
And I guess too, like I was looking through, and I guess like there's another movie that he did called The Chaser that also stars these two in it. And I guess both of the films are like loosely based off of like the Raincoat Killer during like I think 1993 and 1994, like in South Korea. So that's where they got kind of like the inspiration of like June and whatever serial killer he plays in The Chaser.
Yeah. Yeah, man, they do a lot of fucking. There's a lot of serial killer movies. You
Yeah.
ever see Memories of Murder?
No, but that is like another one that I saw that.
Heavy. Another heavy one. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very good, and I'm glad that I saw it. I definitely want to start incorporating more international films into my repertoire of just movies that I'm watching on a more regular basis, because there's so many movies that like it's so limiting to only watch movies that are made
Yeah.
in the States.
Exactly. Like there's so much more out there, and like stuff like this is kind of like proof that like there are directors and actors that are doing things that are different that like really really work.
Yeah.
And it may not work for like the I guess like casual moviegoer, but like there's stuff that's out there that is really good, and like nobody's tapping into this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our review of that movie. I Saw the Devil. Highly recommend it. So I have a recommendation.
Ah.
I don't know what's been going on lately. There's something in the air, I think, because
It's love.
I have been getting stopped and complimented so many times on this guy right here.
Oh, and the hat?
So many people. I had a guy come up to me in a grocery store, come over, shake my hand, introduce him by his first name, and say, "You got to tell me where that hat's from." So many people walk up to me. I love that hat. I really like that hat. That's a great hat. Yet nobody ever I've never seen anybody in our area ever wear it, because I feel like nobody has the confidence. It's kind of like a bold statement.
Yeah, the wide brim hat.
Yeah, well, it's not wide, but it's just just a hat of this shape. Most people wear like a baseball cap for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna recommend Two Roads Hat Co. They are a sister brand to it seems like a more popular company called GG Pip. They make women's hats. Two Roads Hat Co. makes men's hats. They're really good. They're not cheap. They're not flimsy. They don't feel like they're gonna fall apart. And I remember when I pulled this one out of the box, there's such a big difference when you pull out like a well-made hat versus something that you spent $15 on Amazon for. Again, like you pull this thing off and it's like hard, and it doesn't feel flimsy, and just the quality is really nice. So I would recommend, if you are interested, Two Roads Hat Co. Check them out. They have way more other styles than just this hat. So that's what I'm going to recommend. A little bit more on the pricier side, but quality.
Nice.
Zach, what are we doing next?
We are going to be building our own movie.
Ooh.
We're gonna do direct, like we pick our director, we pick our cinematographer, we pick our score man, we pick our actors and actresses. Maybe give a little description, but nobody can steal it.
Right.
It's ours.
Yeah. This documented that we came up with
our
it right here.
stuff.
Yeah. All right, cool. So look forward to that. Zach, take us out.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. Now, Frank, remember, your nightmare is only getting worse.